So I'm calling the June 14th, 2024 meeting of the Stark Isle Advisory Committee together at 9:34 a.m. Present today we have Danny from Glencoe, Belinda from Algonquin, and Matthew from Wilmette. Also present is myself and Deborah from CCS. So I shared the draft minutes from our last meeting, which was the December 15th meeting. Are there any corrections to the draft minutes? If no corrections, I will accept the minutes as submitted. So I'll post the minutes officially then to the website for everyone. Any additions to the agenda, anyone? We have no business, no old business, so we'll jump right into our new business, which is our report prototype activity. So I will turn it over to Deborah to give an introduction to today. And I think I have to make you
Ooh,
a
yes.
co-host
Can you
here.
just let me share my screen real quick?
Yeah,
It's a quick PowerPoint, so not too
there
long.
we go.
Right. All right. Today we have a very exciting activity for you. So thank you all for coming. Bob has been working to develop a new report using Tableau. So this report is coming out of some requests from governing board to provide like additional circulation statistics for our members. So Bob has kind of put together a draft report that Mieko is going to demo for you today. And we are going to do an activity called I Like, I Wish, I Wonder to get some feedback from the group, essentially on what you think of the report and what changes we can make. So just a quick summary of the activity. Again, we're looking for some initial feedback on this report prototype. We're going to ask your feedback on what you like, what could be improved, and ask you to share your ideas for what else we can do with the tool. So kind of dream big, brainstorm, share your ideas for kind of future development. And then your feedback, we're going to summarize, compile, and share with our team. That way we can incorporate that feedback into the tool moving forward. So here's what's going to happen. Mieko is going to give this short 10-minute demo of this report prototype. So if you don't have one now, just grab a pen, a notepad, a Word document on your computer. And during that demo, just write down your ideas for like what you like, your questions, what you wish this tool could be, what you wish could be different about it, and like your wonder, your ideas, your brainstorming. You'll have plenty of time after Mieko finishes the demo just to ask questions about the functionality and what you're seeing. Once we wrap up with the demo and that discussion, we're going to give you just 5 minutes to kind of finish jotting down your thoughts, your ideas, and then we're going to launch a Zoom poll for each of our 3 questions, and you'll submit your answers for each. And we're going to come together and we're going to discuss each question as a group. So the first question we're going to ask you to provide feedback on is what you like about the report. So this is a starting point for like what went well, what's like really positive about the tool. So for example, I like being able to track statistics by both day of the week and the hour. So this is things that you're like, ooh, yeah, that's something I would definitely use at my library. The next question we'll ask you is what you wish you could see. So this is kind of the starting point for like, what could we do differently or what could we improve about the prototype that you're going to see today? So for example, like, I wish the graphs were pie charts instead of bar graphs, that kind of feedback. So how could we make this tool more useful for you? And then the last question we're going to ask you is, I wonder. These are your questions like, oh, I wonder where this data is being pulled from, or, I wonder if we can set up a report to be emailed to me every month. So these are kinds of your dreams, your questions, and then your dreams and your ideas for how we could really make this even better than what you're going to see today. So again, those are the 3 things we're going to ask you. So as Mieko is doing her demo, feel free again to jot down some notes about what you like, what you wish you could see, those improvements that we could make, and then ooh, your ideas for wouldn't it be cool if it could do this. So again, grab those pens, make sure you got a little paper to jot down some notes. Before Mieko jumps in, any questions?
No.
No? All right, then Mieko, it is all yours.
Great. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. So as Deborah mentioned, we are using this platform called Tableau to present the data. If you've heard of the diversity audit tool or you've used the diversity audit tool, that's the same platform that we use for that application. So just a quick heads up about what data we're working with. The prototype right now only has data from Algonquin, covering 1 week in April. So it's a limited data set that we have. And right now I do have it scoped to just looking at data from ALK Maine. So this prototype is looking at checkout data. So it's going to give you things like how many checkouts or the percentage of total checkouts. So the ways we can display the checkout data is structured around these elements, oh no, called dimensions. And let me just refresh. I think I've had this site open. I opened this site too long before the meeting started. Okay. So it's structured around these elements called dimensions. And the dimensions are how you want to frame and view the data. Right. So if you go ahead and take a moment and scope out the different dimensions there. So for example, we are able to break down the checkouts by, say, patron code. So if you wanted to see how many checkouts were ALK patron versus maybe HUK patron, or we can get a breakdown of checkouts by the day of the week, right? So this percentage of your total checkouts happen on Monday, and this percentage of your total checkouts happen on Friday. Right now, I have one dimension selected. I have transaction type. And this dimension is going to break down my checkouts by self-check transactions versus Leap transactions. And then we are able to view this data either in one of these checkout numbers tabs or checkout graph tabs. So I'm going to click on checkout numbers 1. Checkout numbers gives statistics in a numeric format. So here we have a raw number, and then we have the percentage of total. So for example, here within this time frame, we have 609 patrons checked out a total of 3,201 items at our self-checks. Or we can say roughly 61% of all patrons used self-checks, and roughly 70% of all our items this time frame were checked out at the self-checks. The checkout graphs, I'm going to click into this checkout graph 1 tab. Checkout graphs gives a visual representation in the form of a horizontal bar graph. So again, we see roughly 70% of our of items checked out were checked out at the self-checks. Roughly 30% were done in Leap. So let me go back into the selection tab so we can go back to our dimensions. In the selection tab, you can adjust dimensions to display by selecting and deselecting a dimension. So I no longer want to view checkout breakdowns by transaction type. I'm going to click on that to deselect it. And then maybe instead I'm going to click on material type. I want to select that as our dimension. There. And then here you see we have like, I'm going to hover, you see a true statement and then a false or a null statement or a false statement. So when any of the dimensions that fall under this true area with this little like green box, that's my visual indicator that this dimension is selected to display. Anything under the false or null, the red box, means the dimension has not been selected to display. Now, if I go back into our checkout numbers tab, I get a breakdown of our checkouts by material type. So I can see that, 63.5% of checkouts during this time frame were items with a material type of book. The default sort is largest to the smallest. If you click on this little icon next to the drill down dimension header, you'll see you have some different ways of sorting. So right now the default is in data source order, largest to smallest. I can also sort alphabetically if I wanted to view the list that way. And so this way I can more easily compare, say, like book, book hot, and book new. So both these checkout numbers and the graphs have 3 tabs each. And this is because you can select up to 3 dimensions to display at one time. I'm going to go back into my selections tab. So far we've only been looking at a single dimension, either the transaction type or the material type. But we can add up to 2 more to kind of break down our data in different ways. So for this one, I'm going to keep material type, but I'm going to click on transaction day to add it in as a dimension. So right now it's got number 1 material type and number 2 transaction day. So our data will now be broken down first by material type, and then within a material type, it's going to break down the transactions by day of week. Also, because we are looking at 2 dimensions, we are now able to reference this checkout numbers 2 tab, right? So the number next to in the tab reflects like the number of dimensions you're working with. So we're working with 2 dimensions. I'm going to look at checkout numbers 2 tab. So I can see now, let me scroll down here to maybe our book new. I can see now when most of the book new items are being checked out. So I can see like most of these checkouts, or about a quarter of these checkouts, are happening on a Monday morning. So this way, maybe Monday morning I can tell shelvers like, hey, why don't you prioritize shelving some book new items this week? Let's add, we're going to drill down a little more. We're going to add a 3rd dimension. So this time I'm going to add transaction hour as a 3rd dimension. So I'm just going to click on that. And I've got my drill down material type. 2 is our day, and 3 is our hour. So again, it's going to break down the checkouts by material type first, then sub breakdown by day, and then even further sub breakdown by hour. And again, because I'm looking at 3 dimensions at one time, I will reference either the checkout numbers 3 tab or the checkout graph 3 tab.
Hey, Miyako, I have a question.
Yeah.
You said you're working obviously with a limited data set from Algonquin, but if we were accessing a much larger set, when you start talking about days or whatever, how would there be a sort of an option to select a period of time, or you know what I'm saying?
I do. Let me jump into this filters and fields tab real quick.
Sorry if we're going to do that in the future.
Nope. I was not. So this is a good question. So there is a date range here. Let's see. And I might not be in the right spot for this. Start end dates. My answer is like yes, you will be able to should be able to select a date range. I am not savvy enough yet to know how to do that in this prototype though. And
Good enough.
Yeah, and this is just like the very first mock-up of a thing. So it's a tiny set of data, and I think Bob's just like, we need some feedback on this before we decide what we're going to do next. So you are our feedback givers. So
And
thank you all for
I would
all
also
the questions.
and I would also say like that is a really important thing to mention in the I wish, I like, I wish section where it's like we need to very easily be able to select date ranges. Okay, let's see here. So we are at our drill down 3. So our drill down dimension 1 is by material type. Our drill down dimension 2 is by day of the week. And then drill down dimension 3 is by hour of the day. So now if we go back and we look at our book new dates, we can see on maybe Monday, here's the breakdown of book new items by the hour. So we could even drill down our shelving strategy a little more and say, okay, we've got this concentration of checkouts in the 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock hour. Let's shelve at 9 a.m. We have another concentration of checkouts from like the 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. hours. Let's do another round of book new shelving at noon. So that, that is just an example of how you can kind of layer the data to kind of fit your needs or your applications. The last thing I want to mention here, going back to the selection tab, is that there's no set hierarchy for the dimensions. So it will break down the data based on the order you select. So right now we've been working with a breakdown primarily of a first layer of material type, then day, then hour. I'm going to deselect material type. And let's say deselect hour. So now our primary breakdown is by transaction day. And now let's say if I want to add material type back in, that's going to be my secondary layer. So how the breakdown is going to depend on the order in which you deselect and deselect these dimensions. So now if I'm going to click on a tab, I've got 2 dimensions I'm working with. So I'm going to use checkout numbers 2. So now if I'm looking at the data, I'm looking primarily by day, and then within a day, I see our drill down dimension. So I'd say that is a very brief look at this prototype. The structure, how you can interact with the data, how the data is presented. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this time, but I will keep everything up here. So if you have any questions, you want to see anything demoed, I can come right back in and show or demo. So now we're going to kind of move into that reflection time. So we'll stop here. If there's any questions, anything you want to see again in the tool. Take a few minutes to gather our thoughts.
Could I ask a quick one? Is there a way to differentiate between checkouts and renewals?
I'm just going to share my screen, right? I should have just kept my screen up here.
Well, I mean,
that
it
is
shows
a
them together, and I just
question.
wondered if there was a way to know what was a true checkout and for the first time or not.
Yeah, if you go up there, is a renewal.
Is a renewal? Okay.
Yeah, I see there. Yeah.
It's more in the middle next to the data.
So if we do select these, oh, start checkout and renewal. Let me, okay.
So there is a way. That really was,
Yeah.
that was one of my questions, right off the bat. Did you want us to just scream out our likes, or do you want us to?
Yeah, why don't you take like 5 or so minutes just to
Yeah,
jot down your
sure.
likes, your wishes, and your wonders. And then when you guys are done, you can just kind of like, we're done. Otherwise, we'll stop you in like 5 minutes and then
Okay.
we'll launch that first poll so you can type in your responses. Okay, you can keep jotting down notes. I'm going to release that first question. And hopefully, I've never done this before, but hopefully I click the right one. All right, I'm going to launch the first question, where you're just going to jot down your thoughts on what you liked about what you saw today. So take your time, no rush. And let me know if you don't see the poll, because I've never done this before. So
No.
hopefully you see it.
I see it.
Okay. Phew. All right, gonna give you another minute or two to finish typing up and submitting things you like, and then we will come together and just chat about it as a group. Okay, I'll leave the poll open. It looks like maybe one of you is still typing out your response. Oh, there we go. We got them all. End poll. Awesome. Does anyone feel comfortable sharing what they said?
Sure.
Ooh, am I sharing?
Yeah, I
Am I
could go.
sharing the results? I can't.
You're sharing,
Am I? Oh, I'm just sharing. Okay.
you're sharing
I'm not
I
sharing
see
the
mine.
actual results.
Oh, here we
Okay,
go.
here we
Let's
go.
see. Yeah.
It's so confusing when you can't see what you're sharing on the
Ye-
other end, but it looks like Mieko
Yeah,
is here.
I clicked the view details, so I was able to get the able to actually see the answers.
There you go.
That's okay.
Yep.
Does anyone want to talk through theirs?
Yeah, I could say a few words. You know, if you follow baseball at all, you know, they talk a lot about analytics, you know, looking at the stats, how to use improve performance based on that. And I think this kind of ties into the analytics, you know, how you break down the numbers, the checkout stats. I think that's going to help us in terms of performance, in terms of, you know, scheduling, weeding collections. We're in the process now of doing maybe like a renovation, a major renovation on the first floor. So we want to look at, you know, when we're looking at all the data right now. So we're looking at when items are checked out, and in terms of reading the collection, what things are more popular. Of course, staff have access to that already, but there's going to be a lot of changes here at Wilmette. In addition, the shelving department might at some point become part of circulation. So I'd want to look at when to schedule staff, and looking at analytics like this, seeing like when new books are being checked out and stuff like that. As you pointed out, it gives me a clearer sense of, you know, when to schedule staff, when are the busy times. So I think this is a wonderful tool, these analytics that'll help with scheduling and just in terms of collecting data as we go through this renovation and transition here at Wilmette.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons behind the request to create a tool like this, is to help libraries determine appropriate staffing levels and when you're busiest, and looking at all of those things as libraries take on these big projects like your library is, Matthew.
Mhm.
I'll go next. I can see mine is I didn't put periods in between mine. Mine's just it was a nice list when I wrote it. So I'll try to remember how I had the wording down. But
No
I think,
punctuation needed.
yeah, okay, thanks. That's great, because it's pretty much how I talk anyway, so it makes sense. I really like the analytics part of it as well. I don't see it that we would use it as much for staffing, but definitely where to put materials so that patrons would check them out. We do a lot of small displays. And right now with summer reading, we're doing so much programming. It would be really nice to see, you know, during that hour, what's happening when kids, for example, are at Book Buddies. They were, you know, teens are reading to them or they're reading to the teens, what parents are doing at the same time. I know I worked at the desk for a little while and saw parents trying to scoot out to go somewhere, realizing it really was just a half hour, don't go too far. But I think this could be used very, very productively for a lot of, I mean, I'm a spreadsheet geek anyway, but, and I'm in the back now, but I know that, there's a lot of concerns about getting materials where people are going to take them. So I think this would be very, very helpful for that. And to give it, um, you know, in such an easy way to read it. I sometimes when I open Simpler Reports, I take a deep breath and try to get through it. But this is, I mean, it's very user friendly. I mean, it's very basic terminology on there. That's me in the middle. Uncomplicated display, ease of selecting dimensions. Um, really, really, I could think of a lot of practical uses for statistics, not even just staffing, but you know, day-to-day things. And then the self-checkout question I get more often than I could possibly even, you know, they ask me that a lot, like I have it at the tip of my tongue. I don't know. Let me call Bob. He'll know. But you know, that those kind of statistics are practical. It's so hard to measure how awesome we are here at the library sometimes, but this is definitely a tool that we could use to do that.
I like what you said, Belinda, about measuring impact of a program. That's something that was brought up at governing board too, of like, hey, when we have story time, do we see a spike in checkouts right after that of youth materials? Or,
Mhm.
you know, when we lead an adult program on genealogy, do we just see, again, a spike in checkouts of materials in that collection? So I like hearing that echoed from you as well, that that's something that you want to look at.
Mhm.
Danny, anything to chime in there?
No, I mean, did you say you or Mieko that, is this an in-house product?
Tableau is a third party
Oh, okay.
tool that we have kind of dipped our toes into with the diversity audit tool we built. So we have a subscription. So we're really looking at like how can we make use of that subscription by providing some additional tools and visualizations for staff. So, you know, web reports is like Excel-based reports,
Okay.
but there have been lots of requests recently for things like maps and charts and more dynamic ways to present the data. So we're learning all about Tableau, or I should say Bob is learning all about Tableau. He is our true expert here. So again, this is kind of one of the first passes at creating kind of this dynamic report for members.
You should have said, yeah, we just threw this together. No problem.
Yeah,
It's,
we built it
it's,
from the bottom up.
it's, it's very, no, it's impressive. Like I said, how dynamic it is to be able to instantly throw together statistics from different sort of areas, and how relatively comprehensive, you know, data to which we have some access already, but so yeah, no, at least at first blush, it's pretty impressive.
Mhm.
Awesome. Love to hear that we're kind of going in the right direction here. Um, any other thoughts on things you liked or that really stood out to you as like, whoa, I would totally use that? No? Okay. And I'm going to launch the second question. Which is the things you wish for. So what about the tool do you think could be done differently or improved? So be very honest here of like, ooh, that looked confusing, or I wish it could do this. This feedback is going to be so helpful to us. Go ahead and take a few minutes to fill that out. Okay, looks like everyone submitted their answers. Does anyone want to share what they wrote down for their wish or things that we could improve upon?
Well, I don't know, I was kind of reaching, off the top of my head, I know that there was the option of displaying the data as like a bar graph. Unless I missed this, is there another way to display that other than just the bar graph, as whether it's like a pie chart or something along those lines? Are there other options, or is it mostly like would lay out like a bar graph? That's one thing I was thinking about.
I would say that's really helpful feedback to know what types of data visualization
Mhm.
are valuable for staff. I don't know what's possible, but if there is something that you think there's interest in or you are especially interested in, it's obviously it's something we would definitely explore.
Okay.
We build those type of graphics for our board, but we don't internally. I would say I could lose the graph. It doesn't matter. The bar graph didn't matter to me, but and we really wouldn't share this with our board, so I could take it or leave it. But
And I just reiterated my question I asked earlier. I certainly wonder if we're suddenly working with data from a month or a year or something where that it gets massive very quickly, how seamlessly we can, sort of slice and dice that. And it seems to be a pretty robust product. So, and we've just had a glance at it. So I'm sure I'd have a lot more questions as we learn more.
Sorry, I think the mailman came, so my dogs are barking a lot in the background. Miyako, could you share the chart again? I just want to take just another look at the different dimensions and the different ways that we can filter by that. So I think there were things like workstation in there, like Polaris staff username. So just want to take another peek.
Okay, hopefully you should now see a list of the dimensions. And then Deb, did you want to look at what else did you were you interested in looking at?
You look at the filters and fields. Again, I'm not sure if this is functional yet in this prototype, but just seeing the different ways that, like Danny said, kind of slice and dice. So it does look like here, again, this being kind of a beta version, that you can do some filtering by like who owns the material, like the items being checked out. You can filter down by stat code. So like if a selector wanted to just look at like how like checkouts of their material, like mysteries or, feature films, they could do that by stat code. You can look at patron libraries. So look at, when are your patrons checking out materials and visiting versus maybe reciprocal borrowers? When are they most heavily using your library? You can look at your patron code. So,
Yeah.
when is your juvenile card coming in, or maybe, your teacher cards, when do they tend to come into the library to check out materials? So you can filter by that. So it looks like there's a few different ways to filter here, though we'd definitely be interested in like, is something missing that you see here? And I know this might be very new, so maybe we're not sure yet. Any other feedback on kind of what you wish you could see?
I don't remember what I typed. I wrote lots of notes down while we were talking or while Miyako was doing it. I put down something about the sort, but I don't think it's on this page. I think it's on when you actually get, one of the checkout numbers, right? So like your choices are alphabetical or largest number, that's what I was referring to for the sort. Like I'm not really sure what other ones I would use, but it feels very limiting to me. I do like to sort a lot of different things all the time, but so yeah, that was one thing. And then I put down the true or false. I'm not a huge fan of the true or false, like T or F. I mean, I think you could, as if it's green, it's go, and red, it's not go. I don't know what other language would work there, but
Right.
true and false seems, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I like the boxes. I also put down about how to choose the order, like on this screen, how you have to deselect to do it. So if I put this in the wrong order, I had to do, yeah. So that seems, like I want to, I want to sort. There I am again, trying to shuffle things around, but there's only 3. I mean, I guess it really isn't that big of a deal, but those are just my initial clicking things, so.
Yeah, that's great feedback, Belinda. Any other last thoughts before we hop into what you wonder, your idea generation? Good. All right, I'm going to launch our last poll then. So here is your chance to put in what you wonder. What questions or what ideas do you have about this tool? So feel free to put in things like, it'd be great if it did this, or questions you might still have, or again, suggestions for us. All right, I got 3 responses in there. Anyone want to share what they popped in for their I wonder question? You look like you want to say something, Matthew, so I'm just going to ask
I
if you
know,
will.
right? I'm just gonna wait. Go ahead.
No, the only thing I could think of was, for at the moment, I'm sure that stuff is gonna come to me after the fact. How far back can we go with this
Mm.
data? What are the parameters that we can set?
how far back would you want to go?
Um,
Forever.
I won't know until I get there, until the
Right.
question comes up.
You
But
know, I
really,
don't know,
ideally for you,
a
what
year
would
back, you know.
a year? Okay,
Forever.
forever.
Kinda.
I sort of wanted to apologize for mine all seem negative. But
Not negative, constructive,
Yes.
which is exactly
Yes.
what we need.
Yeah,
Spin,
especially
spin.
at this stage, yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
no, I mean, if you've been in a position or a library forever, like I have, some of this you just know already. It's like with any data or any stats. Although then you're always surprised. You think you know it all, but you don't. So I'm like with anything, I'm wondering how applicable it will be. Although, like I said, at first blush, it really, especially how quickly you can throw together, this data. It's pretty impressive.
Awesome. I
use-
think that's helpful.
Sorry, do you use other forms to get this information, Danny?
Yeah, and that was actually one of my, I sort of wonder, we have all the great CCS canned reports, or I do, yesterday I just did selector lists. I do simply reports every month for all of our selectors. So we can see things that are lost or missing or long lost or whatever. So, I wonder how this will work with what we already have.
Right. And one of my questions was about save searches, like in Simply Reports where you can have those. Is that a possibility to have? I'm always looking at the data on Tuesdays at, whatever type of stuff.
Yeah, that's a good, like, something that would remember your filters or remember your
Right.
facets so that you can easily just redo it every week or whenever.
And do you have any sense, one of my questions is, my office keeps getting invaded, I'm sorry.
It's me.
Um, sorry about that. I wonder, like, potentially, seems like such a powerful product, if it's sort of going into nooks and crannies where it's hard to create canned reports that we're able to, do you have any sense you can extract things easily that you can't extract now? Any sense?
In terms of the data points,
Just,
I'm not sure. So like
yeah.
what could this do that maybe you couldn't run yourself in Simply Reports? Or that we don't have maybe represented in an existing
Yeah.
web report?
Yeah,
Miko, can you share the screen again? I gotta like refresh my memory of what's in this one.
that's a pretty vague question. I'm sorry.
No, I think that's a good one. It's like, what benefit does a new tool have over,
No,
what
and
we've already
actually
got?
that one I meant to
Yeah.
state it more positively. It seems potentially like maybe we could much more easily pull stuff that's not easily had right now.
Yeah, I would say, and Miko, you can chime in if you disagree with me, because it's been a while since I've run like a statistical report in Simply Reports. So in Simply Reports, you can run stat reports that will give you data on like checkouts and things that are happening within a certain time frame. But it's really limiting in how you can filter those reports. Usually they give you like, you can filter one way. You can't apply like additional layers. So I feel like it is really limiting where you can maybe look at checkouts by hour, but you can't also look at like checkouts by hour by patron code or by material type. So it's kind of like a little bit more flat than something like this would be, which allows you up to 3 dimensions. And maybe that's feedback you might have too, is like, we want more. We want to pick 4 dimensions or 5. So I do think that this is a little more flexible than at least Simply Reports is. Miko, you have any thoughts on that?
I would 100% agree. I think with Simpler Reports, you are either running like an item stat report or a patron stat report. So you can't really combine data from like those 2 record types together. Whereas here, maybe you are able to layer on these patron codes or checking out these material types. So I do think they're you are able to kind of get some statistical data from this tool that you wouldn't be able to in Simply Reports.
Thank you. That's a great example, and that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that was,
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing that Danny asked, and that does make a lot of sense, because Simply Reports popped in my head, and I was wondering what the difference was, but now that clears up a question I had.
I think that this
Yeah.
is definitely, I mean, you've spent a lot of time talking in our tech groups about, the reports and what's beneficial. It's tough. We get into a groove with our library where this is what we use. This works really great. And honestly, when Gary was here, he did so much stuff on his own that he really didn't take advantage of all the things that you had to offer. So now that he's gone, we're all like, wait a minute, what? We don't have to come up with some crazy way to do this. It already exists. So, I think it's just not knowing exactly what things we can do with it. I think with education would be super helpful. I know for us. And I mean, the way we do our IPLAR, we've kind of got it all worked out now, but this is definitely way more, and you used the word dynamic, way much more dynamic for real life situations. How can we make quick changes, or what patterns are we seeing, those type of things, where the historical data is helpful for sure, and we need it for different things. But it would be nice to give some really specific information. Like I said, it's tough for some things to be measurable, but I think this would be beneficial for that.
Yeah, and Miyako can chime in on this. After governing board talked about, they were kind of like doing this big brainstorm of like what things would kind of be most beneficial for CCS to take on, and data is always a big thing. I think one of the terms that they used a lot was like trend mapping. So like finding your patterns, finding your trends, and being like CCS working on a tool that could help libraries see those trends easier than, again, maybe analyzing raw spreadsheets.
Well, and it's also, it'll be nice to stop using terms like post-COVID, pre-COVID, so that we can, just find new ways. I mean, technology has changed. We need help doing things differently than we did before. Our concerns are different. With our decline in circulation, we're like, how can we help ourselves do better with those type of things? So, yeah.
I'm sorry, what's the name of this product again?
The
Tableau.
tool, yeah, the tool we're using, or the software, is Tableau.
Tableau, okay.
Mhm.
No, and there's our head of children's is a deep diver when it comes to data. I think she's gonna be very excited about this.
Awesome. Well, Anne, are you talking about Anne? Of course she is.
Yes.
She loves all the data. We're going to be talking about this next week, actually, at the PASS technical group, because they're a group of selectors and managers of youth and adult services. So we're hoping to get some really good feedback from them as well, on how it might be useful to them. I think sometimes this is maybe more obvious of like how it can help you in Circ, because it's a lot of data on like when you're busiest and when you see the most checkouts. So we're really curious too to see that other side of the selectors, like what do they want to know about how materials are circling. So you tell Anne she should come to PASS next week if she wants to see it.
She'll be there with bells on, I suspect.
Yeah, and
All right.
all those youth services folks have so much free time now during summer reading. But
Yeah, right? I'm
we'll
sure.
have to remind them this is beneficial. Come on now, tune in. Yeah. They all have that glazed over look here in Algonquin. I'm like, I'll see you in September. I'm not
bet.
going down there.
Well, if it's one more thing on their plate, they don't have to attend live, but we'll record PASS, and they can just send us their feedback by email or by ticket. So if they're busy,
No,
okay.
and
We
I
totally
but
get it.
Right. It's nice to just say, hey, listen, there is something that we really need your feedback on. Take it's worth your time to give a little bit to help move things forward. Everybody benefits. Give it a whirl. I'll give you a
Definitely.
good
And I'm
shout
sure.
out.
Okay, thank you, Belinda. I'm sure we're gonna do another activity. Again, this is just like the like prototype number one. This isn't something that's going to be available even this summer. It's going to take us several months to like perfect and finish it. But as much feedback as we can get in this early stage will, I think, benefit us long term and help us maybe get it out there sooner. So love the feedback. If you all think of anything after the meeting, feel free to shoot me, go and I an email or open up a help desk ticket, and we'll kind of wrap that into our summary of the feedback we got today and the feedback that we'll get next week. So any last thoughts? No? All right, Miko, back to you then.
Okay. So that was basically our meeting agenda for today. So first of all, thank you so much for participating in the activity. The only last thing I want to mention, if you are interested in serving on this committee again next year and you have not yet, you or your director has not yet submitted a nomination form, please do so. Before we adjourn, if there are any last comments or questions?
Have a good summer.
Yeah, everyone have a great summer. So I'm going to say this meeting is adjourned at 10:32.